Welcome everyone to ManageEngine Patch Tuesday webinar for the month of December 2024. As we welcome the festive spirit of December, a month brimming with warmth, connection, and celebration, it's an ideal moment to reflect on the importance of safeguarding what matters most, our digital well being. Just as we carefully decorate our homes with love and joy for the holidays, let's also take the time to strengthen our cybersecurity, ensuring that we are not only ready to enjoy the season, but also prepared to face any challenges the new year may bring. Folks, it's time to enhance our security by applying the latest patches and updates in this month's Patch Tuesday. With immense gratitude, we express our delight at having you all join us on this fine morning. Let's get ready for an insightful session. Before we move on, I just want to double check. Can you hear me clearly and is my presentation visible? If everything's good to go, just give me a quick thumbs up in the chat so that we can keep things rolling. Great. Thank you, participants, for your response. I'm Niveda, product expert at ManageEngine, and I'll be your presenter today. Alongside me, we have our patch pundits ready to engage with you in real time via chat. So please feel free to post your questions throughout the webinar. Kindly note that it will be a 60-minute webinar and it is being recorded. The recorded session will be sent to your registered email IDs in 2 to 3 working days. So, what's on the agenda for today's session? First up, we will have a detailed breakdown of the Windows life cycle as well as the end of life dates for the various Windows versions. Next, we'll be discussing the Patch Tuesday updates for the month of November. And then we'll also be demonstrating how you can simplify the patch management process for your networks endpoints using ManageEngine's patch management solution. Followed by that, we will also be sharing some of the best practices for patching that you can follow to perform patch management for your hybrid networks. And last but not the least, as always, we'll have a question and answer session wherein we'll be addressing all your queries. All right, so let us take a look at the Windows lifecycle. Guys, if you're still running Windows 10, here's an important heads up. Its active support end will officially end on October 14, 2025. That means after that date, no more security updates or feature improvements. So if you haven't already, it's definitely time to start planning your upgrade to Windows 11 before support runs out. But don't worry, if you're already using Endpoint Central for patch management, you're in a great position to handle this transition smoothly. Let me walk you through how it can simplify the entire upgrade process for you. Let's go to the console. On the home page, you'll see Zia's analysis. So this feature is super helpful when making the move from Windows 10 to 11. It gives you insights like which Windows 10 devices are reaching end of life and which ones are ready to upgrade to Windows 11. Plus, you'll get other useful information to guide you along the way. For more details on how to get started, check out the links shared by our panelists in the chat. At ManageEngine, we are excited to share that you can easily initiate the feature pack update through Patch Manager Plus. For step-by-step instructions on upgrading to the latest feature pack, just check out the forum link shared in the chat. Don't wait too long. Upgrading to the latest version is definitely the way to go. So let's move on to Patch Tuesday update breakdown. So this time there are 71 vulnerabilities, out of which one is also a zero-day vulnerability. We'll be discussing them in the later slides, but taking a look at the breakdown, we see a total of 118 patches released to mitigate the 71 vulnerabilities. Also, if these vulnerabilities are left unpatched in your endpoints, they can cause 6 different kinds of impacts in your systems, which we'll also be discussing in detail in the following slides. So as I said earlier, there is just one zero-day vulnerability released in this month's Patch Tuesday. Let me quickly show you where you would find zero-day vulnerability in Endpoint Central console. In the top menu, click on Threats and Patches. Let me just sign in. All right. So click on threats and patches, choose threats, and choose 0-day vulnerabilities. So guys, these are 0-day vulnerabilities listed. So let me just go ahead and fix this vulnerability in the system. Click on install public patches. It will automatically take you to manual deployment. And by applying all these necessary configurations, you can successfully patch this 0-day vulnerability. So the 0-day vulnerability is CVE 2024-49138, found in Windows Common Log File System Driver, and this can cause elevation of privilege. This vulnerability has been publicly disclosed by Microsoft and is actively being exploited by attackers. This vulnerability can be used to gain system privileges, granting full control over a system. Although the vulnerability has been revealed, no further details are provided yet. This has been assigned a CVSS rating of 7.8. Now let us move on to the critical vulnerabilities. We have 16 vulnerabilities this month out of the total 71 vulnerability. We have 54 important and 1 moderate vulnerability. And guys, all the critical vulnerabilities have remote code execution impact. So let's talk in detail about the critical vulnerabilities. The critical vulnerability CVE 2024-49117 is a vulnerability affecting the Windows Hyper-V. If an attacker has access to a guest virtual machine, they can mess with it by sending some specially crafted file requests to the hardware. If they pull it off, they could use it to jump to other virtual machines and spread the attack beyond just the one they started with. Moving on to the next critical vulnerability, CVE 2024-49124, CVE 2024-49112, and CVE 2024-49127 affects Windows LDAP. Lightweight Directory Access Protocol helps connect, browse, and edit online directories functioning above the TCP or IP stack. It uses a client server model where clients access and manage data stored in a directory, often for authentication purposes. So, an attacker who isn't authenticated could exploit a race condition in a vulnerable LDAP server by sending a specially crafted request. If successful, they could execute code with system level privileges, gaining full control of the server. The next critical vulnerability, CVE 2024-49126, affects Windows LSASS. So, Local Security Authority Subsystem Service is a crucial part of Windows that takes care of security like checking user logins, handling password changes, and creating access tokens to manage user access. If an attacker isn't logged in, they could exploit a weakness in LSASS by taking advantage of a race condition. Essentially, they'd have to time things just right. If successful, they could run code remotely with the same privileges as the server itself, all through a network call. This could give them a lot of control over the system. And next up, we have CVE 2024-49118 and CVE 2024-49122, and this vulnerability affects Windows message queuing. Message queuing is a Microsoft protocol that ensures Windows computers can communicate reliably even if one goes offline for a bit. It does this by storing messages in a queue until they are ready to be delivered. If an attacker wants to exploit a flaw in Microsoft Message Queuer, they'd send a malicious packet to an Microsoft MQ server. If they succeed, they could run code remotely on the server. And moving to the last critical vulnerability set, CVE 2024-49115, CVE 2024-49116, CVE 2024-49123, CVE 2024-49128, CVE 2024-49106, CVE 2024-49108, CVE 2024-49119, CVE 2024-49132, and CVE 2024-49120. These vulnerabilities affects Windows Remote Desktop Services. Windows Remote Desktop Services licensing or RDP licensing lets you control a remote computer over a network. It's super important when setting up RDS environments with the remote desktop license server being a critical piece of the puzzle. Now, here's where it gets a bit scary. An attacker could exploit this vulnerability by connecting to a system with the remote desktop gateway role. They trigger a race condition, causing a use after free issue, and if they pull it off, they could execute code remotely. Definitely not something you would want happening. Now, speaking about the patches by impact, as I mentioned earlier, that if these vulnerabilities are left unpatched, they can have 6 different kinds of impacts on your systems, starting with 31 causing remote code execution, 27 causing elevation of privilege, 7 causing information disclosure, 5 causing denial of service, 1 causing spoofing, and 1 causing defense in depth. Now let's take a look at the operating systems and the applications that have been affected this month. So as we saw earlier, there were a total of 71 vulnerabilities, out of which 59 have been found in Windows, 10 in Microsoft Office, and 2 in System Center. Dear participants, if you want the entire information about the Patch Tuesday updates, you can directly refer to the Manage Engine's Patch Tuesday forum post that has been shared in the chat. We are glad to tell you that out of all the patches that have been released in December 2024, so far we support a total of 2,309 patches. So you can deploy these 2,309 patches using Manage Engine Endpoint Central, Patch Manager Plus, and Vulnerability Manager Plus.